No, this is on planning, zoning, or one.
Okay, well, that's what you guys.
Yeah, I know, it's confusing.
Right, and so I know we had the sign that we had in there, I almost stuff that is zoning meetings.
It's all sign permit, zoning permit, mean the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because they had three, one, two,
Of course.
I was like, yeah, there was, I was like, what?
Yeah,
A
that's.
little overwhelming. So
Uh-huh.
after this, everybody, he said, I'll see.
Then call Sue and say, we got proof, we're ready to put it up. What do you need us to do before we put it up? And then she'll say, here's the building permit. Probably. Or maybe she'll say, the building inspectors look at this and says, you don't need a permit. Maybe.
Yeah, because we already had this day out there and it's.
Beautiful.
And so I was like trying to make her, I just took so long. I just had to find something.
Absolutely.
Yeah, in fact, the sign part and all the parts are in the back, all the graphics are as a place.
Yeah.
They're like, I was like, oh.
Without weightlifting.
Yeah.
Sure.
We don't have to change it or anything like that,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was like, oh, my luck, I
Right.
somewhere to break it.
Right. We had some trouble, the township had some trouble in the past with M24 right of way and stuff being in it, and maybe we approved something that went in and we shouldn't have, so that's kind of why we did what we did with this process for you. Yeah, just to make sure that we're covered. If MDOT comes to us and says, why the heck did you allow that person to put that sign there? We can say, no, we've got this that shows it's clearly outside the right of way. So, yeah, it's.
No, and we just, it's a long time coming, we started getting shown in 2020.
When they expanded the road, they told us there wasn't a problem putting a sign in front of the building. That was
Glad to hear it, okay.
a lot of years ago.
Like, yeah, sure.
And his company doesn't do signs, because we can have people come to do
We've
it.
got a sign out in front of the building.
Well, yeah, my mother-in-law had some.
Gotcha, okay.
One.
And
Basically, our sign is the exact same size as the guy's.
Yeah, okay.
So we're not gonna like tower over the
Oh,
top.
no, not at all.
They're
Yeah.
all exactly, ours is the guy that's got the biggest one, with all the fancy lights out and the
Yeah.
dog.
Yeah, we were meeting with him one time, because we put our kids, our dogs in the daycare.
Great.
And my husband just out of curiosity, he was like, yeah, how much was that sign? He goes, $50,000. I was like, yeah, that's what I said. I was like, no, I don't
No
know.
way.
Yeah, not joking. He was like, $50,000 for that digital sign? Oh, no.
Yeah, right, right.
Well, actually, I thought that was a little on the cheap side,
The
because I've
reason
been
why I
in
wasn't at that meeting.
for churches. So
Okay.
I was in the.
They've got some nice signs.
Churches.
Yeah.
See, what happens is the sign isn't,
They don't
it's all
know what-
expensive, they gotta put all the special computer gear inside.
The
And
electronics.
it's run all the cables to the building. So
All right, it's 7
log
o'clock,
in.
we'll call the meeting to order. Everyone please rise for pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, if we can have a roll call, please.
Roll call: Dan Miller,
Here.
Tom Wise,
Here.
Andrew Derderian,
Present.
Phil Bellinger,
Present.
Nick Holden,
Here.
Lance Gould is absent, George Nash is absent.
Okay, if we can have an approval of the agenda, please.
Also moved with the addition to communications, which would include a discussion of the new law that's going to take place in November. It's called CREO, C-R-E-O.
I'll second. Okay, motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, approval of the minutes of June 12th, 2024.
Make a motion that we approve it.
Support.
Okay, motion made and seconded, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, public comments for any items that are not on this agenda.
Karen Pacheco, so Village of Metamora. So a lot of my comments I planned are for Joe, but he's not here. Just because I was doing some work around the house today, and I listened to the entirety of the last meeting, and at least 15 minutes of his comments were him telling stories that could have been cut. So I think it would be great if we could urge him, as an employee here, to be a more efficient communicator. I am an editor, so that is my professional opinion on that. It actually would make it a lot more efficient and effective if there was less storytelling. And one of the things he brought up was embracing the future with signs and that type of thing. And I think that is in another planning commission in another place, they would have projected it. They would have had it on a screen. They would have had it on a large TV or something like that. I mean, this is, our technology today allows for that, and then everyone can literally be on the same page as we go through things. So maybe consider that. That's not a huge purchase. That's a small purchase, actually. And it's one that, I mean, are we that poor? We could easily afford something like that. Also, agendas could be put up online. That's what happens in a whole lot of other townships. I think it would be fantastic if people could just see the agenda and we didn't have to email Sue. It's great that she emails us back. Sometimes we're reading ours. It should just be up there at least the day before the meeting. I still haven't gotten any update on the Best Barn inspection. I've filed several complaints about it, being concerned about the fact that only 20 acres was approved for that variance, but they are advertising their entire farm as a venue. I am concerned about fire protection there based on what I've seen in the photos they have posted, because you're going to have open flames in there with the catering, and then is all the proper stuff there. Has it been inspected? I took a class recently that I think all of you should take. You're going to work in local government. You should be well aware of the Title II ADA obligations that you are all working under, because it may come up at some point. Someone may approach you and say, hey, I need an interpreter, I need my materials in a different format, whatever. You should know how to do that. I took a class for $5 online. It took me less than 4 hours. You could easily do that too. myadalearning.org, or there are several others out there. I gave this to the regular board. I hope you all consider it. Read through it and see if there were a model ethics ordinance here, what would it say? And how would your actions apply here? There's an anti-nepotism clause, which is very applicable here, where a lot of people are related. But please read through and consider how your actions would look if this were enforced, because these are enforced in a lot of places in Michigan. The other thing, I'm going to bring it up again, is the text amendment that allows people to go straight to the ZBA and not come here first. I think you really need to fix that. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, no other public comments? No hearings tonight. We'll move on to new business. The first one is the sign permit review for 3539 South Lapeer Road, otherwise known as the M24 Car Wash. Ben?
Yes, thank you, Dan. So we got 2 sign permits on our agenda tonight. First one of these is for, as Dan said, 3539 South Lapeer Road. This is an existing car wash. It looks to be called JJ's Touchless Car Wash, I believe. So in your packets tonight, apologize, maybe just might be a little bit of confusion with the materials tonight. We had a few last-minute submissions for these 2 sign permits, but you can see that the applicant is proposing 1 wall sign. They do show an image of their existing monument sign, but it is our understanding that there are no proposed changes to the existing monument sign. They just showed it because our current sign ordinance has that requirement that says combine your freestanding sign and your wall sign, and the area must not exceed 120. So in this case, they're compliant with that standard. So like I said, they're only proposing 1 wall sign there. We completed our first review and then shared it back to the applicant, and the only outstanding piece of information that we had was we needed to see on that side cut of the sign, we needed to see the thickness. How thick is that sign going to be from the wall? And they sure did give that to us. I'm holding the updated submission here. I know it's hard to see, but if the updated submission has a line on that detail that shows that it's only 11 inches from wall to the front face of the sign, and that's compliant with our standard. You have to be under 12 inches. So we're good there. And looking through the sign review here, those were as I said, those were the only 2 things. I will say that, as many of you probably noticed, there looks to be about 6 flag or streamer signs that say open for business and say things of that nature. When I drove past it right now, they don't seem to say anything like new business or grand opening or anything along those lines. So currently, those are illegal, non-conforming signs that if we were enforcing a little bit harder, those should be taken down. So my recommendation to you all is to approve this sign permit with the condition that those flag signs on site be taken down, and Joe can verify that. That's my recommendation to you all. Please let me know if you have any questions as you think about this sign permit.
Okay, thank you. Board, comments?
On the signs that need to come down on the car wash. Joe will take care of that anyway. I don't think we have to put that in our minutes or anything.
Okay.
It's his job, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree.
The only reason why I said that is this is an opportunity for you all to kind of do some direct enforcement. You know, we talk about Joe doing some enforcement and talk about how we're limited in the hours, but in my professional planning opinion, I would not approve a new sign on a site that is already having sign troubles. You know, that's just what I'll say. But, you know, Phil's absolutely right. We've had some intense discussion about Joe already doing that. So you could leave that out of the motion. You could put it in. It's up to you all.
Well, I feel that the sign application they put in is in compliance. I don't think we need to address any other issues than what they've brought to us. So I'd make a motion that we accept their application. Oh, yes. I make a motion that we accept the sign permit for 3539 South Lapeer Road.
I'll support. Touch this car wash.
Motion made and seconded. Secretary, do you want a roll call vote, or you just want to?
Is a roll call necessary for sign application?
I would say no, not for sign applications. No, it's kind of just like a recommendation that you all just made. Yeah.
Okay, motion made and seconded to approve the sign permit permit for 3539 South Lapeer Road. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Moving on for the sign permit review for 3383 South Lapeer Road. Go ahead, Ben.
Yes, very good. So another sign permit request here, proposed monument sign for two small businesses that are located at 3383 South Lapeer Road. So for this one, we've got two main pieces to their application. We've got one sheet that is the sign design sheet that's got some color call-outs and a bunch of dimensions showing us how large the sign is going to be. And then on the back, oh, I guess it's on the back of mine, and then included with this submission, we've also got this locational map that kind of shows where exactly the sign is going to be sited in the parcel with setbacks. We did have a fair amount of back and forth with this applicant to get this sign permit in compliance with our ordinance, but I can say now that it is very much so in compliance. So you can see on the checklist that's in your packets, there's some text in black and some text in red. So the text that's in black was from our first review, and the text that's in red was from our updated submission review. So you can see that anywhere where there's red, there was an outstanding point that has been addressed by the applicant. So I'll just walk through the checklist real quick and point out those things that have been addressed. Originally, we asked the applicant, it wasn't clear if the sign was to be double-sided. The sign will indeed be double-sided, and the design that you see is the same design on both sides. We asked the applicant to provide a very detailed color scheme, calling out colors all over the sign, and then also giving us this color image of the sign design, which they did so, and you can see that they call out the wood as white wood, so I assume that that wood will probably just be wood that's painted. No problem at all. That sounds great. I believe it will look nice. Moving along in our sign permit to page 2. Small typo on the first submission. They said that the sign was going to be 8 feet tall wood, and then where you see 6 inches on those balusters, that was originally called out feet. So we clarified it's not feet, it's indeed inches, so it's only going to be 8.5 feet tall. We asked for a more detailed locational picture of the image. As you all know, on M24, it's really important that we make sure we're outside MDOT area. And this one, you can clearly see that they're far away. They're not close at all, so no worries. One question that I'll ask to the applicant is originally there was illumination proposed on the sign, and we had some back and forth. Originally they proposed one of those arms. There's a couple of signs on 24 that have an arm and then a light from the arm to kind of point on on the sign. However, those are not compliant with our ordinance. Our ordinance says internal illumination only, so those may be out there, but they're not compliant with the ordinance. So question for you all, it looks like that illumination was completely removed from this submission, is that correct?
Yes.
No illumination, okay.
Was it, when we read the original statement, it said that, you know, if we were gonna be running wire or power out there, all the ones that are on the neighbors are all just solar units. They don't have anything special, they've got a little battery pack, $50 special off Amazon, they clip them on top, they're not, there's no wires run out there, there's no permit required
None of that.
to post a light with a solar panel on it. It's like the same thing you'd put in your grass.
Right.
There's no additional structure on any of that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
We're just asking. because-
Absolutely, but do you understand what we're saying?
No,
That-
we get it.
Okay, very good.
Asking to
I
make sure.
apologize.
That's why we took it off, because we didn't want anyone confusing,
Right.
thinking that we're, you know, running wires out there and putting any kind of power on.
Okay, that
And so
makes
you're saying
sense.
the people that have solar ones like that, they're still legal?
So if we were doing some more harder enforcement currently, those would be taken down. We would force them to take them down. So you can see on page 7, that's the final page of this review, it's got a list there. That's the list that I sent to the applicant saying what we needed to be addressed before this was presented to you all. And you can see that those first 3 points have all been very clearly satisfied, and that 4th point was also just satisfied by them saying no illumination. So at this point, I believe that the sign permit is in complete compliance with our ordinance.
Very good.
Thank you, Barrett.
Board, any discussion in reference 3383 South Lapeer Road sign application?
It's cut and dry.
I think it's pretty straightforward.
Did a lot of work on it.
Sure did, yeah. But glad we did it, because now we've got a nice approved plan, or hope to be. Excuse me.
Perfect.
Okay, I'll make a motion to, permit the, sign, for 3383 South Lapeer Road as presented to us, and in compliance with all the issues.
Support.
Okay. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Moving on to unfinished business. Section 1522 sign regulations, working discussion that we've been having. I know it's on the agenda for a final review of the section tonight for a pre-public hearing meeting with the original goal of potentially having a public hearing next month in September. Obviously, we have a couple board members that couldn't be here tonight for various reasons, and also our zoning administrator, Mr. Israel, is actually, I spoke to him today, is at a Michigan Township Association training at Frankenmuth that's required for his continuing education credits, which we always encourage, so understand that. So with that being said, I guess I think we should have a little bit of a discussion tonight, but I definitely think it would be in the communities and then in this board's best interest to push the final pre-public hearing meeting to next month's agenda and with the goal of maybe having the hearing in October and then instead. So.
Yeah, and I have one point to add to it, because I wasn't here in the June meeting and missed the discussions, and I noticed that our enforcement, Joe took pictures of various places, but I'd like to see what some of the other townships have in their ordinances, verbiage-wise, to add to it. So that's what I would like to add to it.
So, and are you thinking of just our neighbors, or were there anybody specific you were thinking about?
Well, Lapeer City,
City, okay.
a couple of townships around,
Yeah,
that have
similar,
commercial areas.
absolutely.
Yeah.
a good one.
Even Oxford.
Okay, yeah, I can bring Oxford as a little bit more of a harder extreme
Yeah,
example. 'Cause-
I would assume that it would
Yeah.
be, but,
He did, I do believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but he did have some of those, or at least we talked at length quite a bit about specifically the city of Lapeers and.
Yeah.
did you, well.
Well, we
see,
talked at length, but I didn't present you with the actual report
Yeah,
part
because
stuff, so I
pictures-
can bring those.
Pictures are
Yeah.
okay, but
Right.
I know two of them are here.
Yeah, there's some pictures in there, one's
Right.
in Almont too, downtown.
Oh, one out, Elmont, okay, yeah, because we went through that,
Yeah.
Elmont tonight, you know.
Oh, great.
It's like,
Yeah, so the reason why he put those pictures in was
Yeah.
just to kind of spark discussion.
Yep.
It wasn't to point out specific things, but
Right.
I understand what you're saying.
Shortage.
Absolutely, yeah,
You know,
we can do that.
compare it with what we have, you know, proposed,
Mhm.
From neighboring communities.
yeah.
Very good.
I got it. On the
Because
second,
they're not always enforced. And I noticed that just in today. I mean, I
We're
went
not
all
alone.
over the place.
Yeah, we're not
And
alone.
there were banners and, you know, the flags and every place.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's not really that enforced, is what I'm getting at.
Mhm.
The economy's like,
Yeah,
Try
when
to
the
get
economy's
business.
in the tank, people need everything they can.
Right.
I mean, they got guys on the street corner going, you know, signs.
Right. Absolutely.
one other thing too, Ben, that I was interested in, is there any communities that don't have a sign ordinance whatsoever?
Very good point. Yes, there absolutely are, but probably not in Lapeer County. I would say the ones that don't are ones that don't even have planning commissions, which there are a handful of those. There's a lot of those around the state that just kind of give it up to the county. And then the ordinances are very unspecific and not encompassing. Like we have, I don't know how many ordinances we have in Metamora Township, but near 50, I'd say probably. And those county, so yes, there are.
just out of curiosity, do you ever deal with those or see what those townships, how they're functioning or looking
Yeah.
compared to the ones that are very enforced?
Very good question. I don't, but I can tell you from just being a planner in this field,
Yep.
I bet it's a lot more signs in ag.
Gotcha.
It's a lot of random residential or agricultural residential parcels
Yep.
where people just put up a sign,
Yep.
you know, they're selling eggs, whatever they're doing, and so I think it's pretty important to have it here for two reasons. We got the huge strip at 24, but then we also have this beautiful rural areas that we want to keep rural. So.
Right.
Yeah. So I'll just say as we move forward, I'm sure that you all are also wanting to keep moving with this and get done with it. I'm sorry that we can't progress on it tonight. We're very close though, as I think you all know. There's only a few things that I'll bring up at the next meeting that we'll have discussion on to kind of finalize. Most of this we're already settled on, but Ian makes a good point. If we look at other ordinances, I can tell you, Ian, I kind of modeled this after the city of Lapeer.
Yeah.
So as we'll look at it next month, I think you'll be happy with it compared to Lapeer. But the things that are remaining that we need to hit on are highlighted in here. So you can, it's really just, it's height of signs. So we had a slight adjustment to height of pole and monument signs in A1 and A2. And reason being, it's still open for change. We had some pushback on that at the last meeting. So the reason why we put it at 12 right now was because it's hard to have a pole sign that's less than 10 or 12 feet anytime. So we could outlaw pole signs completely in ag, we could do that. And then it'd only be monument signs that people could choose from. That's one option we have.
But I think we discussed about leaving the pole signs because monument signs are quite pricey.
Expensive, exactly. Yeah, I remember that now too.
Like these.
Yeah, and then another thing that was outstanding that we kind of had some two sides on was the wall sign area. Right, so highlighted there, this is on page 2 of the table, and that wall sign area, so a lot of communities have it where you kind of, it's a percentage of the wall area. A lot of communities also have it as it's just a flat number. We heard some kind of pros to both sides of those. I think either is fine. I think you're kind of splitting hairs. I think it'd be fine if we did a flat 120 square feet. I think it'd also be fine if we did the 20%. In my experience, most of the time, 20% kind of equates to exactly what we want it to, whether it be 80 or 100 or 120 or something like that. So I don't think you can really go wrong. we were gonna make sure that we were strong on our decision if we wanted to remove billboard signs completely, or if we wanted to leave them in the ordinance. My recommendation is that billboard signs don't really have a place in Metamora Township.
Are we talking about like the billboards that are up?
Yeah. Those-
Yeah, we were firm on that.
Yeah, that we wanted to,
We
right,
don't have any more.
we know more.
Those- Yeah.
We lost two last week.
Yeah, so yeah, I'll speak to that real quickly. There was, Joe Israel told me this morning that someone, not sure who the property owner was, but 2 billboards were taken down, and I'll use the word illegally, because they did not obtain a demo permit from Joe.
Oh, well,
They were
I
just
think I
taking
know who that is.
Yeah,
He's a-
So I think that they're either already started court proceedings, or
Yeah.
they will.
Yeah.
I think it's actually kind of nice they were taken down, because, you know, we're.
Yeah.
You did a good job doing it.
Good.
Took the concrete down.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah, I watched him do it.
So maybe who knows what'll happen in court, but they'll probably, there's 2 sides to that argument, right? We as a township, we're never gonna get those taken down. They were probably never gonna be taken
We're
down.
way
I
ahead.
was in a deposition years ago with the billboard thing,
Really?
and I was the only member left on the planning commission. They either died or they moved, right? And so I was in the deposition room there, and she asked me this question, and I said, I'll go home and I'll find the minutes. And I did, because when I have a problem, I keep a file on that problem.
Wow, man.
And so I
That's
brought it back and we won it.
awesome. Great, glad to hear it. That's great. So, let's see, I think that that's about it. One more thing that it's kind of hard, we've been going on this for so many months, these edits, that it's easy to forget what is actually existing. So I wanted to put that in front of you all to chew on for the next month too. So the last item in that packet that I walked around and handed out is our current sign stuff. Phil, I didn't give you one, I apologize. Sue does a great job with our packets, but sometimes I have a last minute addition.
Well,
So-
sometimes you get duplicates, because I
Right,
got duplicates.
that's
in
right
there.
in addition.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going, oh my gosh.
So we'll chew for another month, and you know what, we could do this, right? We could take 6 more months if we wanted to. We could take 2, it
Yeah, I
really
don't
doesn't
think
matter.
we're in that much of a hurry.
I don't think we're in a hurry either. I think we've had a really thoughtful look at it so far, and we'll continue that.
Yeah.
So,
And I think that's the benefit, right? To not rush to judgment and
right.
think about it,
And
look
we
at
think
it
about
several
it,
ways.
you
and-
can add things.
I mean, it does help, no
or-
different than you said, driving into Ninth End, and, it's been nice to, I paid a lot of attention the last couple of months.
Yeah, right.
Looking at signs, thinking
Yeah.
about it, not just on 24, on the
Just
back roads
everywhere.
too, and
Everywhere.
lots of farm signs and things of that, so.
Well, and we have one administrator that took really, it was a political sign, and he shaved 2 inches off of the political sign.
Wow. Wow.
Uh-huh. That wasn't good.
Wow.
You're not
No.
supposed to touch the political
No,
sign.
right,
It's-
no, without permission.
Started an issue.
Well, yeah, it was an
That's
issue.
what was that, Dave?
Yeah, it did too.
Okay, I think we will move on to communications and our committee report, and per, at the approval of the agenda, I know Ann would like to ask Ben just to make some comments in regards to the new Creole law that was apparently recently passed, so.
It goes into effect on November 29th. It's Public Act 233 of 2023. So it goes into effect soon.
Yeah.
And this explanation on this page wasn't sufficient for me because it's kind of confusing.
It's
You don't
confusing.
have,
Yeah.
you don't have the right to control any of it, but then if they don't like the answer, then they can go back to there, and it's really a lousy law the way
It's a very lousy one, yeah. Did you have something to say now?
No, I was just saying, you said you're very proficient in
Yeah.
that area.
I'm proud to say that I'm pretty strong on it. So, and that title is a little misleading. So start from the top. I'll just begin by saying this is an extremely complex thing, and I'll do my best to give you a good description of what's going on. Maybe next month I can prepare a few materials, and then that'll be easier for us to understand. So the state of so Whitmer set these crazy renewable energy goals that we're going to have 50% of our energy produced by solar, and we're gonna be carbon neutral by 2030, these crazy, crazy things, by 2030, basically. DTE and consumers ran back to Whitmer and said, look, we're having such a hard time citing solar developments because local rural planning commissions don't want us to put a solar development in their community.
Right.
So we're getting denied. And in response, the state has released this new law that's called PA 223. That law says if your development is over 50 megawatts of solar energy produced, you can not go through the local zoning process. You can come to the state for review. And inside of that PA 223 law, they outline some very, I'll use the word weak, provisions for what they're going to review a solar development on. So in short, this is a way for the state to cite massive developments easily to try and help them reach these renewable energy goals.
And cut out the local
Is
government.
well, and would it be land seizures too?
It would not be land seizures. So that is a little, that's a, I do,
Eminent domain.
it's not eminent domain. The state house would have an uprisal on their hands if they were doing eminent domain.
All right.
There is some rumblings, that's a rumor, and that rumor is false. There's no land seizure, so I'll tell you how it goes in other communities. Is DTE goes door to door in these agricultural, rural ag areas and says, here's an offer to lease, 50% of your land, and here's the rate that we will offer you. And then a handful of people will deny. And DTE will come back 2 months later and say, okay, we just doubled that offer. And then they'll come back again and we'll say, we just doubled it again. So it's the only way that these developments get cited is if the landowner agrees to a lease agreement. So honestly, take what you will from that, right? The state is trying to scratch its own back to reach those renewable energy goals. The property owners are getting compensated pretty nicely too. So it's not a case of eminent domain because these private property owners are saying, please come because you're going to pay me.
Well, and the other thing is the farmers are having a harder time growing the crops.
Exactly.
Because of the government with their regulations
Oh,
on fertilizer,
exactly.
dust control, the whole nine
Yeah.
yards.
So personally, I think it's kind of nice. I think it's an interesting opportunity for farmers that have been on hardship. You don't have to necessarily lease 100% of your land, lease 50%, and then continue to farm the other 50, and then that 50% that you lease to DTE for solar panels you don't have to worry about your farming margins then, because you're going to make so much on this energy production. So anyway, that's a personal how you want to deal with if you want solar in Michigan or if you don't, that's a kind of a political thing. But anyway, so that law, that CREO thing, 50 megawatts. You have to be 50 megawatts to even qualify under this new state law. It takes about 5 to 8 acres of panels to produce 1 megawatt. So 50 megawatts means 400, 600, 700 acres. So I actually came in here several months ago and talked about this a little bit, and looking at our zoning map, there's no chance that we're going to see a development that's that size. This CREO thing talks about if separate townships wanted to get together, so if we wanted to get together with other townships in Lapeer County, we could adopt a compatible renewable energy ordinance between ourselves and those other 4 townships, and that's called a CREO. And then if you have a CREO in place, then there's an opportunity to do a local review of that large. If you have a CREO, a developer has to come to that CREO for review first. The problem with that CREO is, it might say that in that article, if you get denied, they can run to the state and say, hey, the CREO denied me, please permit me, state.
That's exactly what it is.
So there was actually there was a webinar today that Michigan Association of Planners put on that, to me, as being someone who feels that I'm pretty strong on this, they pretty much said, so another thing, CREOs have to comply with the state law. So like I said, the state law is pretty weak in their site development regulations. So like there's very little discussion on screening. There's very little discussion on fencing. There's very little discussion on all these details that are really important to communities for solar
They just
ordinances.
want to pass through
They just
Well,
want
and
to,
that goes, and then that goes for wind too, doesn't it?
it goes for wind too, yeah.
And this area is not even in that wind
Exactly.
category. It's
Right.
straight across the
It's
center
a little
of
bit more
Michigan.
north.
Yeah, it is.
And frankly, I know that there's that huge solar one in Lapeer, in the city of Lapeer. Other than that, I don't believe Lapeer County is too conducive for solar. Do you all know of any other solar farms in the county?
Yeah, two of them.
Don't cut through to Walmart, what's that called, Turple or Turn?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge. Anyways, one of the big things two things I wanted to mention. First of all, DTE's been nothing but a pain in my ass. I tried to call them to get solar panels that they're looking into having Tesla come out and do the solar panel with battery packs and the whole 9 yards. And it's absolutely insane. Well, you've got more than one plug, we can't do anything for you. And then you've got to talk to this department, and they said, we can't do nothing for you, you know, and they're
They
just...
subcontract everything out anyway.
Yeah,
They
and
don't do
then
anything
you leave
themselves.
messages, and they say, well, you gotta have a permit
You
to do
can't
this.
even have a
Yeah.
pole put on your
Yeah,
property. It
that-
takes 6 months.
They've been a real pain. The other big thing that's real popular is, they're called bifractal panels now, and they're using them for agriculture. What you do is they don't lay down anymore, they go vertically, and what they do is they leave enough room between each set of panels for a tractor to go through, plow, plant your stuff, and you can actually get additional growth, and you can still farm all the land and collect all the money off of the solar panels.
Wow.
So you're not getting screwed over by just leasing it out and then taking, and then, because like, if you get close and look at what they did over, what's the name of that road? How's it pronounced? Turl.
Yeah.
You look over there, they just don't take care of it. It's just like, you know, all weeds to cover. Well,
I've seen
if
it.
they're
You know
farming it,
what they do with the weeds? They take weed killer out there.
Yeah.
And they're using a pesticide.
Yeah,
which
on
is,
farming land.
You know, if you're trying to protect the environment,
Yeah.
Well, we just have
you
to try to
wouldn't be
keep
using the pesticides.
the area rural with the
The-
whole side, but
Yeah.
keep looking at the rural.
yeah, the
Yeah.
bifractals will absorb light from both sides of the panels now. So they have double the output that the ones they're using currently have.
I think it's
And
a big scam for Michigan anyway, because we don't have the sun like we do down south in
these,
Texas,
Yeah.
in Arizona, places like that.
if you're using laydown with the stand-up, you'll actually get probably 50% more power out of it in the winter than you do with a laydown, because there's nothing to do it. They're totally vertical. So when you go down the line, you've got enough room you set them up so that you got enough room for your tractor, your plow, and to put your stuff down the middle, and then you run down verticals. You can see them, they're doing them all over the country now. And then with their bifractal, so you got sun from both sides. They're working on a new top structure for them, because what happens is if you look at a curve for normal solar panels, they go like this if they're
Yeah.
south facing. What these do, because they're vertical, instead of laying them down flat, number one, you don't get any no snow accumulation on them.
Yeah,
They
that's
get
the
sun
other
from
thing.
both
In the
sides.
winter, the
Yep.
snow
And
covers the whole
yeah,
thing, and you
yep,
don't
it
get
doesn't
anything.
this doesn't cover anything because they're vertical. And then you actually get more solar when there's snow, because the snow reflects up on the side panels, and because they're bifractal, which means they can receive solar light from both sides of the panel.
So,
You know,
so,
yeah.
now- so Ben, so essentially the
Yeah.
Creo thing is, like, they could come in theory and just, like, bypass the local government and go straight to the state.
Basically, with the new state law, the local communities have like 3 different options of what they can do. They can, number one, adopt a CREO, which is compatible renewable energy ordinance. So that basically means, look at our township map, we don't have enough acreage to support a development that large. But we might see a development that ranges across townships. In that case, you need a CREO. If you don't have a CREO, then they're gonna go to the state.
See, that again, by using the
Okay,
vertical
let's
line.
not,
Yeah.
I apologize, just let Ben, let Ben finish.
We appreciate it.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's planning commission here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and honestly, frankly, working with a handful of other communities in Lapeer County, I don't think other communities want CREOs. They just want to kick it to they just want fun and not have to deal with it at all.
Exactly.
One thing that's not talked about, that needs to be talked about more, is what about developments under 50, right? Before this new state law, I've reviewed about 6, so we primarily work in 4 counties: Shiawassee, Genesee, Lapeer, Saginaw. So among those 4, I've reviewed 6 or 8 solar developments over the last 2 years. They're all way under 50. Because, like I said, 50 is a bunch of acreage.
Yeah.
So something that's getting very much lost in this point is what about these other smaller developments? This state law does nothing to those, so it's kind of the same thing. Communities have reached out to Rowe and said, hey Rowe, can you help us write a local solar ordinance? And we help them, we make it really strong. And we say, you gotta have this fence material, and this fence is this high, and you gotta have screening that's compliant with this, and all these things. And then that's how you, I would say, successfully site a solar development. You know, we can put a solar development here, but I want to see some very intense screening on all sides that basically you drive past and you don't really know what's there. And that's what we've been doing with developments under 50. But there's all this confusion about the developments have to be over 50 to qualify for CREO or to qualify for the state law. So, like I said, I know it's a bunch of information. I'd be happy to answer any specific questions.
You kind of cleared it up because this was like.
Right,
Well,
and the
that's
headline
not
of CREO, like I said, is misleading.
Yes and no.
It's the law, and then locals have several options within that law. One of those is a CREO,
It doesn't
but
specifically.
it doesn't say that. And honestly, there's a lot of talk about CREOs. I don't see the value in them because, like I said, a CREO has to be compliant with the state law. So if it has to be the same as the state law, then why do we even have a CREO?
Right.
The state's going to review it against the same standards.
Well,
I don't.
I think that they're gonna do the same thing with the gravel and the water too. They're trying to take the
Local control out.
control to send it to land.
And frankly, I think it'll be really interesting to see what happens with this legislation once Whitmer's term is done. You know, I would suspect that we're probably going to flip to a Republican governor next. I think they'll probably kill all of this. And
I hope that they do because of the fact that they're going after septic systems and wells, and that means no more building in rural areas where they don't have sewers.
Yeah.
So that they can force the people to stay in the cities, so they have better control over them. I'm sorry, that's my opinion.
And frankly, I think that there are some areas where the state could help us and do things a little bit better. In this case, I can confidently say they won't, because I write local solar ordinances and I review local solar plans, and I'm very confident that the level of review that the state does will be far less than what we've been doing for our local communities. Yeah, exactly. So,
Because the state doesn't necessarily care about what happens in the
the state just wants to cite as much as they can, right? They don't care which area of the state or anything like that. So, like I said, I did bring this up about a couple months ago. If we were going to do anything on this topic, I would recommend that we write a local solar ordinance for the township, and that would protect us if any development did happen to come in. Like I said, it's probably going to be a small one. Then we can properly cite it. Right now, I don't think we have anything, which means that if somebody came in and asked to cite, it'd be rocky, and they'd probably get by with not doing everything we want them to do.
Because there has been a couple of farms
Oh, really?
going south that were for sale.
There is a bunch of land.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think about that because it's
But those,
flat.
I don't think those are, they're not over 200 acres.
No, but 80,
Yeah.
one parcel's
80,
80,
100,
one's,
yeah.
That's the goofy thing about it, Nick, is like we're
It's
doing,
piecemeal.
there's one in Chesaning Township right now that we're reviewing that is 19 parcels.
Oh,
And it's
right.
all connected somehow.
To get them over that 50 megawatt.
Well, so it's just, I would just say it's just a large development. It's actually a very strange case. They're actually opting to go through the local review process. Because there's a lot of ambiguity with the state review right now. So DTE wants a clear path to say, I go from this step to this step to this step, and then I get approved.
Yeah.
And right now, the state stuff is very strange. So it's a 120 megawatt development in Chesaning that we're reviewing, and like I said, it's 19 parcels, and it's all connected through these huge lines. But I will say, we used one example, that community was formerly very much against this solar development. There are some very significant state incentives that are coming. So I think that they're going to get close to $1 million annually directly to the township annually, just for having this development there. So there's, something to be said for that, absolutely.
The bottom line is it gonna reduce our electric bills?
Okay.
Probably
Very good, thank you, Ben. Did you have
Thank you.
anything else for tonight? or-
not. Nothing else. No, plan to be on this meeting so we can get those sign permits through. But
Anyone else on the board have anything else?
The minutes.
Pardon me?
Did you do the minutes?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The minute.
Yep. Okay, I'll entertain one more motion. then.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
Sir, Matt, thank you for your explanation.
yeah,
That's the best that you could.
yeah.
I know it's probably like
I know.
a bunch of great.
Well, I feel bad to you guys too because I just gave you so much.
Oh, no, I get it. Like I say, as far as that sort of stuff,
Nice job, Dan.
my concern is
Running.
all this, if you get to
Good info,
just
yeah.
bypassing the local government,
You did good.
like why are we?
You did great.
You know what I mean?
Okay. So the Creo thing is to give, they say to keep a seat at the table,
Yeah.
which is important, but like I said, doesn't really matter if the standards are the same.
Yeah,
It doesn't really matter.
and you're checking into the same.
Right, and the question that I have is, we have a Creo with our 4 neighbors, who's the planning commission that gets to approve it?
Right?
Like, there's gonna be a spat about